Welcome to English Through Emotional Stories, where we don't just learn words, we explore lives. In this series, we journey into the hearts and histories of extraordinary people. Each story is designed to help you learn English deeply through emotion, meaning, and memory. Today's story is about a woman whose curiosity changed science forever. Her name is Marie Curie, and her life glowed with both brilliance and pain. Let's begin. Maria Sklodowska was born in Warsaw, Poland, in 1867. She was born into a world that told her no. No, girls don't become scientists. No, Poland can't be free. No, knowledge isn't for everyone. But Maria didn't listen. Her father was a teacher, poor, but passionate. He showed her how to read the stars. He let her play with lab equipment. He taught her that science was not just for men, it was for minds. And Maria's mind was hungry. At night, she read secretly under a blanket. During the day, she dreamed of experiments, not dresses. But life wasn't kind. Her mother died when Maria was just 10. Her sister died before that. And soon, poverty knocked louder. Her family lost everything. But still she studied, because Maria believed learning was a form of resistance, and knowledge a kind of freedom. In Poland, women weren't allowed to go to university. So Maria joined the Flying University, a secret underground school for girls. They met in basements and kitchens, hiding from the authorities. They passed books like they were treasures. It was dangerous, but Maria felt alive. She was learning chemistry, physics, philosophy, and English. Even then, she knew that someday her voice would need to cross borders. But she had no money to go abroad. So she made a deal with her sister Bronya. Maria would work as a governess and send Bronya to medical school in Paris. Then, once Bronya was settled, she would help Maria do the same. For 5 long years, Maria worked in silence. She watched other people live their dreams, while she waited for hers. But she never stopped learning. At night, she taught herself physics from borrowed books. She stared at the stars and whispered, "One day." And one day it came. At 24, Maria packed everything she had into a small trunk and boarded a train to France. She changed her name to Marie, to sound more French, and enrolled at the Sorbonne University in Paris. It was cold. She had no money for heating. She often fainted from hunger. But her mind was on fire. Marie Curie studied physics and mathematics by candlelight. She worked harder than everyone, not to compete, but to survive. She knew she wasn't welcome in the world of science. Not as a woman, not as a foreigner, not as someone poor. But she didn't ask for welcome. She asked for truth. One day, a friend introduced her to a quiet, serious man named Marie Curie. He was a physicist, strange, shy, brilliant. At first, he wasn't sure what to make of Marie. But when she spoke about science, his eyes lit up. They were both people who loved silence, precision, and possibility. They didn't fall in love quickly, but they did fall in purpose. Pierre offered her a lab space. She offered him something even greater, inspiration. Soon they were not just husband and wife. They were partners in love and in discovery. And the world was about to feel the spark they created together. At the end of the 1800s, scientists were just beginning to understand the atom. A few had noticed strange rays coming from some elements, rays that could pass through solid objects. Marie was fascinated. "What is this force?" she asked. "What lives inside matter that we cannot see?" She began to study a mineral called pitchblende, a black rock with mysterious properties. She crushed it, boiled it, tested it, measured it. She worked for hours, covered in dust, wearing no protection.
Why?
Because inside that rock, she believed, was a new kind of energy, something powerful, something the world had never named. And she was right. In 1898, Marie and Pierre discovered a new element. It was more radioactive than anything ever found. They named it polonium after Marie's homeland, Poland. Later that year, they discovered a second element, one that glowed in the dark. They called it radium. The world was stunned. New elements? Energy that passed through flesh and stone? Marie Curie had opened a door no one knew existed. And she wasn't done. In 1903, Marie Curie became the first woman to win the Nobel Prize in Physics. She shared it with Pierre and another scientist. The world celebrated, but some whispered, "Did Pierre do the real work?" Marie didn't answer. She let the science speak. But privately, she began to feel a weight of being the first, the only, the one who didn't fit. Still, she worked, because the truth mattered more than pride. And then tragedy struck. In 1906, Pierre Curie died suddenly, hit by a carriage on a rainy street in Paris. Marie was shattered. The man who had believed in her, the one who called her genius, the one who shared her fire, was gone. She refused to speak to anyone for days. She slept with his coat. She walked the streets of Paris in silence. But then, she walked back into the laboratory, because she knew he would have wanted that. And so began the second half of her journey. After Pierre's death in 1906, Marie returned to the lab. Not because she was ready, but because the work demanded her. The grief was heavy. The silence, louder than any experiment. But her love for science was now mixed with something deeper, memory. She poured her sorrow into her studies. Each tube, each chart, each chemical reaction was a conversation with the past. And then, she did something that shocked the academic world. She applied for Pierre's position at the Sorbonne. It had never been done. No woman had ever held a teaching chair at a French university. But Marie was no ordinary woman. In 1906, she stepped into a lecture hall full of skeptical male students and began to speak in a voice both quiet and unshakable. Her first words were, "When one considers the nature of the atom." The room fell silent. That day, a new door opened, not just for Marie, but for women everywhere. Marie Curie didn't stop. Her mind kept reaching forward, deeper, further. In 1911, she won her second Nobel Prize, this time in chemistry, for isolating pure radium and for her work with radioactive elements. This made her the first person in history, man or woman, to win 2 Nobel Prizes in 2 different sciences. It should have been a time of celebration. But instead, Marie faced attacks. Newspapers turned against her. They questioned her worth. And when they discovered she had a brief romantic relationship with a fellow scientist years after Pierre's death, the press publicly humiliated her. They didn't write about her discoveries. They wrote about her love life. They called her a foreign woman, and worse. Crowds gathered outside her home, yelling insults. Her daughters were scared. Her heart, already broken once, began to crack again. But Marie did what she always did. She returned to her workbench. Because while the world whispered gossip, Marie Curie continued to change the world. In 1914, World War I broke out, and once again, the world was in flames. But Marie Curie did not run. She realized that soldiers were dying on battlefields because doctors couldn't see inside wounds. So, she had an idea. What if she used radiology, her science, to help save lives? With the help of her daughter Erin, just a teenager, she created mobile X-ray units. Small machines that could travel to the front lines and scan wounded soldiers. She personally drove the vehicles, trained nurses, and risked her life. They called them Little Curies. Because of her, thousands of soldiers were saved. But Marie never accepted a salary. She didn't want fame. She only wanted to serve. It was her way of turning pain into purpose. Through all these years, Marie Curie worked without any protection. She handled radioactive elements with her bare hands. She kept glowing substances in her pockets. She stared into rays that no one yet fully understood.
Why?
Because no one knew how dangerous it was. Or maybe deep down she knew and chose to continue anyway. By the 1920s, her health began to break. Her hands burned. Her bones ached. Her vision faded. Doctors didn't yet know the term, but today, we'd call it radiation sickness. Her notebooks glowed in the dark. Even now, over a century later, they're stored in lead-lined boxes, too radioactive to touch. She had given her life to her work, and now her life itself was fading. But she kept going. Despite the pain, Marie kept teaching, researching, and advocating for science. She inspired her daughters. Her daughter, Erin, would later win a Nobel Prize herself, making them the first mother-daughter Nobel laureates in history. Marie also helped establish radium institutes in Europe and the US, bringing science closer to medicine, to cancer treatment, and to the public good. When she finally died in 1934, at the age of 66, her body was buried not with kings or scientists, but with Pierre. Decades later, in 1995, her remains were moved to the Pantheon in Paris, the final resting place for the most honored people in France. She became the first woman to be laid there for her own achievements. And her tomb, fittingly, was sealed in lead, still carrying the silent energy of her life. Marie Curie didn't just discover elements. She discovered courage in the face of limits. She proved that knowledge has no gender, no borders, no shame. Her life was not easy. She lost a husband. She lost her health. She was shamed, silenced, and underestimated. But she kept moving forward, one quiet step at a time. She didn't just glow. She burned with curiosity, with purpose, with belief in something greater than herself. And in doing so, she lit a path for millions. If you're learning English through this story, remember, language is not just grammar or vocabulary. It is feeling, courage, and understanding. You, like Marie, are doing something powerful. You are growing despite the difficulty. You are reaching toward new knowledge, one word at a time. So keep going. Let Marie's story remind you, even in darkness, you can shine.